Hi everybody, this is Jay Nanda, San Antonio Metal Music Examiner here, and I have the pleasure of being with a woman that many, if not most of you metal singers out there should have no trouble recognizing. And if you're not a singer, now's your chance to get to know her. She's known as the Queen of Scream. A renowned vocal coach. Say hello to Melissa Cross. How are you?
It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Melissa's list of clients are too numerous to name. But before we get into those, and we will talk about them, of course, let's start a little bit with your background. How did you first become a vocal coach?
A plain old vocal coach when I was, this is a really weird story. Someone asked me if I would teach them how to do it, and I was broke. Okay, so basically I said, yeah, okay, and then I liked it. And I was in a band, and I was still doing all that stuff, but I needed money. I hated being a secretary. You know, my day jobs were super unrewarding. And so I started teaching someone, and I really dug it. I loved it. I don't know, I like to explain things. I like to find out about things and explain things. And I think I was always a teacher. I mean, someone told me I was a teacher way back when I was still wanting to be a rock star and an actress. And they said, and this was in England, by the way, they said, Miss Mudder, your destiny lies in teaching. You know that, don't you? And I was like, inside, I was like, fuck yeah, right? You watch me, right? You know? But it always stuck in the back of my mind that someone actually had recognized that I had that kind of personality, and that might be what I was doing. So I ended up just doing it by someone asking me if I would be willing to do it. And I had so much training. You know, I trained classically. I went to, Shakespeare school. You know, I had classical ballet, 14 years, acting college, 12 years, music school, 15 years, voice lessons up the wazoo. You know, I had all these many teachers. So when I started to teach, I was like, I know a lot about this. Okay, you mean I can make that much an hour? Because, singing original music doesn't make any money. In fact, you have to pay for it practically. Wow. You know, you have to pay to play if you're doing your own song. So that's how it happened. It started in 1990.
Okay. And you currently live in New York, but you are originally from San Antonio, correct?
That's right, honey. I was born here.
Very nice. Where did you go to high school?
Uh-oh. Okay, so here we go. I went to a semester. I stayed in the Alamo Heights School District for elementary school. I went to Alamo Heights Junior High. I went to one semester of Alamo Heights High School, and I screwed up.
Well, I'd say things have worked out for you pretty
absolutely,
well.
Absolutely. But somehow I managed to convince my wonderful parents to send me away to music school, because that's what I was totally into, acting and piano and guitar and singing, and I wanted to do that. And going to football games at Alamo Heights was not my thing. I did not want to be on the pep squad. I did not want to be a cheerleader. I had no interest in being the most popular girl. In fact, the most popular girl was pretty much victimizing me because I would buy her everything just to be, it was wrong. I'm not a sorority girl. I'm not a, debutante. All that future that was before me was really repugnant to me. So I convinced them that, this was my destiny, and I put up a lot of shit to make it happen, like I was a bad girl. But so I definitely got out of here, but I really love it here. I do.
Now, Melissa's website has a very extensive listing of her clients, melissacross.com. Go check it out. And, of course, her bio on there. But just off the top of my head, Randy Blythe, Corey Taylor, Phil Labonte from All That Remains, Trevor Phipps from Unearth, many more. Up-and-coming singers as well, up-and-coming artists, not just the famous ones that you know of. Who was your first client?
Jesse Leach of Killswitch.
Very nice.
The first singer of Killswitch. Before Killswitch was even a little protozoa on the map. It was before they were signed. It was before anything. And it's interesting, but someone I knew was producing them in the basement. And a lot of bands that he was producing couldn't get through a session without coughing blood. So as a favor to him, he asked, could I just check this out and see if there was any way, some exercises I could, give them to help them preserve their voices. Okay, this is hilarious because the first person that came in was not Jesse. Like it was I can't remember, but it's no longer a band anymore. But basically, the first time I heard the sound, I was like, "Oh my!" Because most teachers will say, "You can't do that. There's no way you could do that and preserve your voice. You just have to stop doing that." But I don't take that no for an answer. It's basically, okay, I'm going to figure this out. So basically, I figured it out, and I continued to figure it out more and more and more as time went on. So, in fact, I did it pretty quickly, but there were some times, Jesse was the first. Jamie Josta kept making appointments, but he never showed up for them. But he told everybody that he was coming.
Oh, there you go.
He told everybody he was coming, and so everybody came, but except him. But that's okay. Jamie, see you soon, maybe.
It's not too late, Jamie.
No, Jamie is fine. Jamie, you're fine. You're doing great. Okay. So the thing is that it was a very short time that I had to get this together, because these people came. You know how the metal community is. They all talk, right? So apparently I'd done something really good with Jesse Leach, right? And Jamie Joss is talking about he's coming, right? So a lot of stuff, I was really scared that I wasn't going to be able to pull it off. I got to tell you, in the first couple of months, I had some really scary looking metal dudes coming down my hallway. Like, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was like really scary. And I was like, oh my God, please don't let me fuck this up. Because I was afraid that I was going to let out a scream and it wasn't going to work. It was going to sound lame, and they were going to say, "You're an imposter," Right. But that never happened. Good. Luckily, that never happened. And somehow I managed to figure it out in time, and now I actually have scientifically figured it out. Right. I've been with cameras down my throat, and I put cameras down Randy's throat, and camera down Tommy Vexter's throat, and I've done, lots of anatomical scientific things about how this thing works. And therefore, there were too many people to teach, and that's why I put out the DVD called The Zen of Screaming. That's why they call me that.
Right. And, is it accurate to say, obviously you work with singers from different genres, but is it accurate to say that I don't know if specialize is the right word, with the more hardcore death metal sounding singers, the growlers, like the... Well, do you specialize with those artists?
I have all of them, because I've been doing it for so long, and I have a name for it. The people that have risen up in metal, period, give me a call, because I've investigated, metalcore, death metal. I even know those categories. Most voice teachers don't have a clue of what that is. They don't even know what it is. They think that heavy metal is like Led Zeppelin, or Aerosmith or something like. So I get those calls because I'm the person that really established the practice, the science, actually gave it some credibility, because people were just denying it. They were saying, you can't do that, that's not singing, that's not art, that's not, and voice teachers would really tell people they can't do this, but that wasn't an option to people like, Brian Fair, who's already, building his own house based on what he's doing on the road. Just, again, like Corey Taylor. Corey Taylor can't go to a voice teacher and have a voice teacher say, "Sorry, Corey, you can't do that anymore." What? He's going to do it. Right. So it was just an amazing, it always amazes me that I got this information. It's like, why me, Lord? Like, why do I know about screaming? How did that work? But really, I'll tell you how I kind of know. Because my hero was Janis Joplin. So when I was, 10, I had a hairbrush in the mirror, and I was lip syncing to Janis. Now, that's not the screaming that we do, but there's an element of that in what Janis does. So I always wanted to know how to do Janis for real, and it was a lifetime quest, because I was a classically trained singer, right? So there is no there's no grit in classical singing. So I would eat, mayonnaise, potato chips, like small drink, like to make my voice raspy like that. But it was not very dependable. So finally, this person that came and asked me how to fit, it was a good thing that I did figure it out because I'd always wanted to do it myself anyway. But unfortunately, I'm a little too old to be on stage now. I don't have anything to wear, and
Well, you mentioned smoking. That brings up something I wanted to ask. Was I would be willing to bet that a lot of these singers that you see smoke for a long period of time, 10 years, whatever the case may be. Do you get situations where somebody comes to you and says, Melissa, my voice is damaged, what can you do to fix it? Do you have any suggestions? And you listen to them and you go, well, first order of business, quit smoking. Has that ever come across to you?
You're going to be very shocked to hear what I have to say.
No, I'm ready for it.
All right. So in case you haven't got the memo and everybody else, smoking is bad for you, okay? We all got the memo. Smoking is really bad for you, but it's bad for you in the singing thing is not quite as an involved piece of this as you think. And there are many doctors that will back me up on this. And there are many, many famous singers who smoked until they were 50, 55, and then all of a sudden they started coughing a lot. And their quality of life was being interrupted by cigarettes, and their whole health was being ruined by cigarettes. And so everything all kind of had a consequence at the same time. You can't blame a bad show on a cigarette. You can't do it. Unless you are allergic to it, and unless you've been smoking for multiple years, like 10 years, 15, 20 years, right? And it's really getting to you, and you have tons of mucus and gunk, right? It's the mucus that is the problem with cigarettes, right? The burning, the nicotine, it dries out the tissues. It's not good for you, but what I'm saying is that it doesn't have an immediate effect on a vocal performance. I would say that you would probably do more damage trying to quit smoking too quickly while you're in a high stress situation where you just got signed and stuff, and you go out and you're nervous. There's going to be more damage done by the tension in your voice and the tension in your body than the cigarette, right? So I'm saying is that I don't tell people that they have to quit smoking to sing, because it's not true. Frank Sinatra smoked, Aretha Franklin smoked, Ray Charles smokes, they all did it. So how can I, Shirley Bassey, all of them, all the really, Chris Cornell, they all smoked, okay? So I would say that if you are okay about quitting, then go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it, because it's going to save you a lot of hassle later, because it's really hard to quit. The longer you do it, the harder it is to quit. But at the same time, you don't have to think that you can't sing because you smoke, because that's bullshit. That's bullshit. So now all the smokers are going to say, good, I don't have to quit. Right? I know that's going to happen. I'm sorry. I am a representative of the truth, the honest truth, and that is the truth, okay? I wish that I could say that you have to stop smoking and you're all going to be healthy and you got 5 more notes on your range, but it's not true. It's not true.
Well, I mean, because you have singers like, I believe, obviously Robb Halford has been, the metal god, has been doing it for nearly 40 years. And as far as I know, he doesn't smoke. Maybe I'm wrong about that. He doesn't drink, I don't think, anymore. And then you have the opposite extreme, a guy like Don Dokken, whose voice was shot for many years after he sounded great in the 80s. And he was reluctant to admit to people that smoking was a big part of that.
It wasn't a big part of it. It wasn't. I can tell you it's not. It was his technique. Technique. That's what I'm saying. Smoking is not the culprit. People will tell you smoking is the culprit because they don't know any better, and that answer makes sense, and so it makes them sound like, oh, I know what I'm talking about, because of course that is not the truth. That is not the truth.
But if you hear a difference in the raspiness of their voice, you're saying it's strictly their technique. The smoking is not an accomplice to it, even if they've been doing it for years.
No, it's not. Absolutely. I'll tell you why. Although it could be a contributory factor, but what's the crux of the factor is vocal overuse. It is a poor economy of usage, and usually it means overstressing the muscles near the vocalis and not using the breath support. That's all it is. I mean, there's basically 2 parts. It's a little more complicated than that, but I'm saying that there's 2 moving parts. There's a bag of air in your lungs, and there's a closure at the top of your windpipe that's your vocal cords. Or they're not called cords anymore, by the way. They're called folds. Folds, okay. So at the top of your windpipe, there are vocal folds, and they keep the air from coming out. So the air is pressure, like behind the vocal folds, right? So if you use, that is what makes a voice strong. You know, like you do that fire thing, you know, and you blow the fire out. I mean, get the fire going with the fan.
Right.
So there's pressurized air going through a small space. The combination of the pressure and the closure is what makes the strength. But what a lot of people do, because this is what we do when we do road rage or trash your room, they tense everything to make a loud sound. So they think loud and they go like that, right? And so that is the technique that has to be erased in order to do this properly. It's so interesting that screaming is a very relaxing thing to done properly. It feels like yoga. It doesn't feel like trash your room road rage. So the road rage people, they hurt themselves because they overuse. They scarred up the muscle. When it's scarred, it can't vibrate anymore. So that's all.
I wanted to ask you also about, you know, female singers are really rising nowadays in metal.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my head, the ones that come to my mind are Angela Gossow, formerly of Arch Enemy, of course, her replacement, Elisa, White Glues. You have Maria Brink of In This Moment, Morgan Lander from Kitty, and a different type of screamer, Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm.
Oh, she's a singer.
I'm convinced that Lizzie could probably stand on top of a mountain and scream and rocks would start falling. Her voice is so powerful. Have you worked with any of those females, and have they come to you specifically?
Yes.
Have you, just talk about them a little bit, the ones you've worked with.
I worked with Lizzie Hale. I worked with Angela Gossow. Both of them, I mean, Angela much more.
Okay.
And Maria didn't want to come, but she was supposed to come, but she felt like it, and she's fine. You know, I went to see her; she's fine. And Morgan, I saw once, and Morgan is like sort of in. It wasn't like a full lesson, but it was like we established a communication where if something goes wrong, she asks me. And then there was one. I haven't seen the new singer for Arch Enemy. And I forgot who else you mentioned. I think that was all.
That was it.
So yeah, I've seen most of them. I mean, pretty much. I know most of them.
Yeah.
And there's more than that.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite screamers actually is no longer screaming, as I understand it, and I never met her. But it was a band called something about a bear.
I Wrestle the Bear once.
Wrestle the Bear once.
Yes.
That girl was phenomenal. That is one of the best vocalists I've like. But I gotta say that Angela is a tremendous vocalist, and Lizzie Hale is like Ann Wilson. That is like, that voice is Ann Wilson. I mean, there is no, that is a tremendous instrument, right? When Lizzie came to see me, it was already like that. There was, I didn't do anything. I just gave her the exercises to save it. But she was already well, you know.
Yeah.
She's an amazing force.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think she's really screaming that much. She's singing, as far as I know. I mean, I haven't, maybe there's some new stuff where she's screaming, but it's pretty melodic. You know, there's different kinds of scream. There's scream with a melody to it, and scream with a spoken word in it, and then there's scream that's just white noise. It's like, shut up! You know, that's like, there's different kind of screaming, and she doesn't do that white noise stuff. She has a kind of a raspy thing when she sings high, but I call that heat.
Right.
When you're putting heat on the melody, I call that heat. But fire, that's fire. You know, like the whole thing's like, you know, that's fire. So Lizzie's a heat singer, and Angela was a fire singer, right? And Angela was so brilliant. I mean, she already had some tremendous technique, pretty much garnered by going to the gym every day for like years and years and years, you know. She is so fit that she has probably the longest, there's a certain kind of scream, I call it the death scream, right? And it's a lowered larynx, and it has that, whoo, that woof thing, woofy thing, right? And she can hold that for a very, very long time. Now that scream is hard to hold, I'll tell you why. Because it's made of air. You can hear this, whoo, whoo, whoo. Well, she can go, whoo, for like 5 minutes. She could probably swim to Jamaica in that, without taking a breath, too. You know, she's like amazing.
Maria of In This Moment has a 20-second scream on the band's first album on a song called Next Life.
Okay.
On the album Beautiful Tragedy.
Okay.
That came out in 2005, and she once told me that the scream that you hear on the album, she did, that is the first take that she did in the studio. That's all she needed.
Okay, well, there is a scream that's easily done for, you know, over I'm going to say a minute, but at least that. And that's the Fry scream, right? And that's why you want me to show you?
Be my guest. That's what we're here for.
You're going to
I want
timer?
to hear some screaming.
Okay, so Fry screaming, I'll just tell you what it is. Fry screaming is aperiodic. In other words, periodic means that it has a cycles per second that ends up in a pitch. So if I sing the note A, right, then my vocal folds are going to be vibrating 440 times a second, and that is what makes it an A by definition. And that's a periodic. Aperiodic is a chaotic vibration where the vocal folds are not vibrating equally. They're making a chaotic kind of thing. And the microphone takes that and makes it loud, whether you do it loud or not. So what I'm going to be doing to you right now is going to seem soft. But if I put that on top of a microphone, it's going to like be ear splitting. Okay, so the trick is not to try to go, not to do it. So basically what I'm going to be doing is just making my vocal folds do something that is really easy. I mean, you just go, but I know it was really
I should have
good.
brought my stopwatch. That was pretty long.
I got lost.
Wow.
I lost track of the time. I was like, is this getting boring?
That was at least 30 seconds.
I don't know.
Probably longer.
I don't know. But it's like,
Wow.
it's easy. That's easy once you know how to do it. You know,
That's
and
a great
believe me,
Halloween sounding scream, I'll tell you that.
well, and also, you see, you have that. That is a function that I am doing with my true vocal folds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other scream, the one that has the voice in it or has a note in it, my true vocal folds are busy vibrating cycles per second, like the A or the B, or even a spoken word. It has a vibration to it, right? Hello. That's even when we're speaking, there's a pitch going on, even though it changes, right? So when that kind of like that scream is very loud, and that has my voice in it. So my true vocal folds are doing that. And then my throat has to do the rest of the chaos, right? So when I do that, it's not just my vocal folds that are doing it. That's my entire vocalis, like everything. The folds, the tendons, the ligaments, all of them are going. If you see that on camera, everything's going like that, right? And the way people get hurt is that they don't have enough air support in the lungs to make it so that you don't have to tense these muscles here, right? And that's another skill, right? So that scream doesn't last that long because it takes more. It can last as long as a sung note. Like if you can sing and hold, you could probably hold it maybe 18, 19 seconds if you're really good. But that other one, there's no, like all I'm doing is going, you can do that forever. Because it doesn't take any air to do
Sounds
that.
like you're at the doctor and he's stuffing the thing down your throat.
But I'm doing something a little bit, I'm going, I'm doing I am changing the shape of my throat. So, I don't know, you want to get into a vocal lesson here?
Sure, if you
Okay.
like.
All right, so vocal folds, right? If you take them out of the body and say, what does that sound like by itself? It only sounds like rattling. It sounds like, it only makes a rattle, like strings. Strings, what do strings sound like? They sound like nothing unless something plucks it, right? Okay, so when you put air through those vocal folds, right, they are vibrating cycles per second or not, right? So basically, people think that their throat is making the sound. It's not, they think it's their vocal